Hello, good afternoon, everybody. This is hello, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, how are you? What? Exoskeleton. Are you with me? So, like we have said, this exoskeleton now has something called cortical. It has something called what? Cortical. In the exoskeleton, there is something called cortical. What is this cortical, or what do we refer to as cortical? Corticals contain proteinous substance. Corticals contain what? They have proteinous substance in them called chitin. They are called what? Chitin. People pronounce them chitin or chitin or something, but I pronounce it chitin. It's spelled Chitin. Chitin. Now, what do you refer to as chitin? It is a proteinous substance that has some hardened mineral salts like phosphate and carbonates of calcium. It has some what? Some hardened minerals like what? The phosphates and carbonates of calcium. When we get to explain the endoskeleton and we talk about the components of this particular substance, you will get to understand that even the endoskeleton has these mineral salts in them, the phosphate and the carbonates of calcium. So in the exoskeleton, it is richly what embedded with what? With chitin, which is what? A proteinous substance. Excuse me. Proteinous substance. So it is this chitin that gives what? The exoskeletons rather, the what? The type of supporting tissues and system that they have. Now, this chitin has a way of helping the organism to elongate in size. It has a way of helping the organism to elongate in size. What do I mean by that? The organism is able to increase in its size when these substances they shed off the body of the organism. The cortical have a periodic shedding off, a periodic moment where it goes out of the body of the organism, and by so doing it gives the organism the ability to increase in size. When it sheds off a particular skeleton, the new one that it will be having, the new cortical that is embedded, it will be having layers. The corticals are in layers. The one on the outermost part is being shed off, then the one that is underlining the one that is shed off is going to be the new one on the outside now. So it is going to have a larger size than the one that is being shed off. So gradually the organism gets to increase in size. Are you getting me? Hello, are we together? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, this cortical, like I said, it's periodically shed off, and that process is controlled by a molting hormone called ecdysone. The process of shedding, or the process of the organism that process exoskeleton of shedding their skin of their skeleton rather, is known as molting. Molting. Are we together? This molting is Molting is what we, or you can also call it, ecdysis. Molting or ecdysis. That is the process of shedding of shedding of their skeleton. Now, the hormone that is responsible for doing that, the molting hormone responsible for molting is called, sorry, is called ecdysone. So the process whereby the organism shed off its skin is called molting or ecdysis. And then, sorry, shed off its skeleton. You know, we said it is that the skeleton is on the outside of the body of the organism. The skeleton is made of what? Of chitin. It is called cortical, and it is what? Richly made of chitin, which is a proteinous substance. So the process of shedding it off is what we refer to as ecdysis or molting. And there is an hormone that is responsible for that. The name of that hormone is called ecdysone. That's the name of the hormone. It's called what? Ecdysone. The name of the hormone is called ecdysone. So that is that's about the exoskeleton. Quickly, let me quickly say this. I said that what? The chitin is rich in what? It has, the chitin is rich in what? In minerals. Minerals like, it is rich in minerals like phosphates, and carbonates of calcium. So you need to remember that the chitin is a proteinous substance and it is very rich in mineral salts with what? With phosphates and carbonates of calcium. Are we together? So, are we together? Hello?
Sir.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Oh, all right. Thank you very much. So, if we understand the exoskeleton now, which is the first type of skeleton, let us now talk about the second type of skeleton. The second type of skeleton, which is what? The endoskeleton. The endoskeleton. I'm coming, please. So this particular type of skeleton is found inside the body of the what? Of the organism. This particular type of skeleton called endoskeleton is found inside the body of the what? Of the organism. It occurs inside the animal body, such as what? In the body of cartilaginous skeleton of fishes. Now, fishes, I believe you know that all Pisces have skeleton. All Pisces have skeleton, and their skeleton is found inside the body of the organism, so they are referred to as what? Endoskeleton. So all types of organisms that have actual okay, let me go straight there now. This endoskeleton, they are particularly made up of two components. The first one that we'll be talking about is the cartilage. We'll talk about the cartilage, and the second one is going to be the bones. These are the two components that make up the endoskeleton in animals. The first one is the cartilage, and the second one is the what? Is the bone. Those are the two major substances that make up the endoskeleton, and they are found in organisms called the vertebrates. Remember, in the animal kingdom, when we try to classify animals, we classify them as either vertebrates or invertebrates. Some animals are referred to as vertebrates because they have what? Hello? Why are animals referred to as vertebrates?
Backbone.
Thank you very much. Because they have backbone. Please, under no condition must you listen to anybody who tells you that backbone is the same as spinal cord. Backbone is not in any way the same as spinal cord. Those are two different things. The backbone or the vertebral column, you can see that used interchangeably. The backbone or the vertebral column. The backbone or the vertebral column, they are actually what? Bones. Are you getting me? Are we together? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the backbone or the vertebral column, they are actually bones, sets of bones. But the spinal cord is not a bone. The spinal cord is a fluid tissue, is a jelly-like form. Is in a jelly-like form. It is a fluid tissue, so it is not a bone. It is just a medium through which neurons are being transmitted. So it is not a bone. Vertebrates are organisms that possess backbone or the vertebral column. So that is clear now, I suppose. So I said that the endoskeleton, they are what? Made of two components, the cartilage and the bones, and they comprise the vertebral column, the pectoral and the pelvic girdle. If you remember that the question in front of us, the question says the two halves of the pelvic girdle are joined together at the, are we together? So that is the question we're actually talking about. So I said this particular endoskeleton makes up, it makes up what? It makes up, or it comprises of the what? The vertebral column, the pectoral girdle, pectoral and pelvic girdle. So gradually, also we have the ribs and the limbs. The ribs and the limbs. Are we together? So those are the parts that we have these what? These bones called the this endoskeleton called the cartilage and the bones. So let us quickly see what the both look like. But before we go there, Let me quickly branch somewhere. There's a particular type of the endoskeleton. Remember that I said the endoskeleton is the type that is found inside the body of the organism. But before we talk about the ones that actually have cartilages and bones, let me quickly talk slightly about these ones here. We call them the hydroskeleton, hydrostatic, hydrostatic skeleton. Hydrostatic skeleton. So what do we mean by hydrostatic skeleton? Like the name here, look at this. We can see in front of this here we have hydro. Is it not? That hydro there simply means what? Who can tell me what hydro means?
Fluid. Water.
Water. Thank you very much. The hydro there is talking about water. So here we're talking about the type of skeleton that has what? A fluid component. It has what? Fluid component or a fluid medium in it. Are we together? So this is the type of skeleton that we see in some organisms with fluid or pressured fluid, and that is what you find in organisms like the platyhelminthes, the worms. Example, in the earthworm. Now, inside the body of earthworm, there is fluid in it. Then it is surrounded by a tissue that pressurizes the fluid inside the organism. Are you with me? Let us try to imagine this. If you have a balloon, for example, and you without air in the balloon, how does it look? It looks very, very flaccid, isn't it? It bends here and there. Am I correct?
Yes.
Good. But the moment you inflate it with air, it becomes turgid, it becomes strong. So it will no longer be easily blown by air. I mean, the way it used to be very flexible. That is because the balloon is now being pressured, is pressuring the air inside it. Similar substances or similar fate is what we have in the earthworm. It has the earthworm in it has what? It has water or a fluid medium, and the fluid medium is being pressurized by the coating of the shell, or sorry, the coating of the skin of the earthworm. So with this, the soft-bodied invertebrates like the earthworm have their hard skeleton. They have their hard skeleton by a fluid under pressure which functions as its own hydroskeleton. It has soft-bodied invertebrates having the fluid under pressure functioning as hydroskeleton. The fluid is surrounded by muscles in the skeleton, in the surrounding tissue. In the surrounding tissue, we have muscles. When the muscles contract and expand, it brings about It brings about maintenance of shape, form of the animal. So that is how we have what we refer to as the hydroskeleton. I said that it has fluid. It has fluid that is under pressure. It has fluid that is under pressure. So that is that about the hydrostatic skeleton. So let's dive in straight into the forms of skeleton that we have, talking about the endoskeleton now. So I said the first one, we have the cartilage. One is cartilage. One is cartilage. So what do we refer to as cartilage? A cartilage is a firm but flexible tissue. A firm but what? Flexible tissue. It is a flexible tissue, quite alright, but it is still very, very what? Firm. We call it flexible because it has the ability to what? To bend. Are you with me? It is rubber-like. It has the ability to, it is like a rope, like a yarn. So it has the ability to what? To bend. But the fact that it bends does not mean it is what? It doesn't mean that it is not strong. So it is firm. And it makes up the entire skeleton of cartilaginous fishes. Like the name implies, they are cartilaginous fishes though. So they have what? Skeleton that is rich in what? In cartilage. So it is found in cartilaginous fishes such as the dogs, sharks, rays, and the rest of those. They are also found in higher vertebrates. These cartilages are also found in higher vertebrates. Higher vertebrates like man, for example. So cartilages have high amounts of chondrins and chondroblasts in them. The cartilages, they have high amount of chondrins and chondroblasts. Earlier on, I said cartilages, they are what? Firm but flexible. Firm but flexible what? Tissue. Firm but flexible tissues, and I said that they are found in what? In cartilaginous fishes, found in cartilaginous fishes. Also in in vertebrates. Also in vertebrates. So that is where we can find cartilages. So I said they are what? They are very rich. It consists of chondrins. It is rich in chondrins which are embedded in cells. Embedded in living cells called chondroblasts. So they are found having chondrins that are embedded in living cells. Chondrins that are what? Embedded in living cells. In the chondrins we have what? Living cells. In the chondrins we have living cells called the chondroblast. So that is that about the cartilaginous, about the cartilage. Now, the next one is the bones. the what? The bones. Now there is a very uh, fine transition between the cartilage and the bones. Let me quickly say this. Note this, please. Cartilages cartilages turns cartilages turn to bones, but bones do not turn to cartilage. Cartilages turn to bones, but bones do not turn to cartilage. What does that mean? Cartilages turn to bones, but bones do not turn to cartilage. Yes, cartilages that are found in animals, for example, they are found in animals, particularly in the vertebrates. They are found in young vertebrates, newly born or newly produced vertebrates. That is where you find high content of the cartilages. Now, when the organism starts to mature and it starts to grow, development is taking place in that organism, the cartilages will gradually transform from that form of being flexible and firm to a substance that we refer to as rigid and strong, which is what we refer to as the bones. So what I'm saying in essence is the bones are produced from existing substances called cartilages. So for example, in newborns, let me quickly use as an example. Majority of us must have experienced. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
We can hear you.
Alright. So when new babies are born, if you have noticed, there is this maintenance care, uh, postnatal care that is given to the children or to the babies, to the newborns, when they are when they are having their births, when they use hot water to try to shapen their body, when they use hot water and a piece of clothes to shapen the body of that baby. Now, at that point, it is possible for them to what? To shape the body of the organism such that the baby, don't mind my diagram, the baby can have this type of head structure where we have the face here, something like this, such that this is how, look at this place here, that is going to be the length of the back head of the baby. And it is also possible that they do something like this, that the baby's head will have an almost perfect round shape. All this is done when the baby's body is still in the cartilaginous form. At that point, it is not yet rigid, like we say the bones are. In the bones, we call them what? Rigid and strong. Rigid and strong because they are what? Already made. It is not possible for you to change their form. It is not possible for you to change the form of a bone. But at the point where it was still cartilage, it is possible for you to change its form. Are we together? So the process of changing the bones and the cartilage The process of turning the cartilage to a bone is what we refer to as ossification. Is what we refer to as ossification. Ossification. So what is ossification? This is the process of turning or changing a cartilage to a bone. The process of changing or turning a cartilage to a bone is what we refer to as ossification. Are we together? So cartilages, they are much softer than bone. I said it earlier on that cartilages, they are flexible but firm tissues. So they have what softer what texture than the bones, but they are not what they are not as rigid as a bone is. So before I quickly go to explain what bones are, let me quickly talk about the three types of cartilages that we have. The three types of cartilages that we have. Number one, types of cartilages. One, we have the hyaline cartilage. We have the hyaline cartilage. This hyaline cartilage is the simplest type of cartilage that we have, and it lacks elastic or collagen. It lacks what? Elastic and collagen. Hyaline cartilage, it lacks, or is the simplest type of cartilage, it lacks elastic fiber or collagen. It prevents bone from being worn out when they move over each other as joints. So you find mostly the found at joints preventing wear and tear when bones rub on each other. So we find the hyaline cartilages at the joints, and their function is to prevent wear and tear when bones rub on each other. It prevents what? Friction when bones rub on each other. So it lacks elastic fiber and collagen. Then the second type of cartilage we have is what? The fibro cartilage. The fibro cartilage. The fibrocartilage. This one is more rigid than the hyaline. More rigid than hyaline. It is also found at joints between the vertebral column. Found between discs. Found between discs of the vertebral column. It is found between the discs of the vertebral column. That is where we find the backbone. I mean the fibrocartilage. Their own function is to what? It cushions the effect of friction, preventing when the bones when there is bending of any of the bones on the backbone. It prevents the actions of wear and tear. Most times we find cartilages as joints. And then the third one is called the elastic cartilage. The elastic cartilage. This particular one has elastic fibers. That is where it got its name from. The elastic cartilage has elastic fibers, and it enhances flexibility. This elastic cartilage is the reason why we say that cartilages are flexible. It has elastic fibers, which makes it possible for it to have flexibility. We can find elastic fibers in the pinna, that is the outer ear. Found in the pinna, outer ear. So we can find the elastic cartilage in the pinna called the outer ear. Now, let's talk more on the bones now. Bones. So we said that bones are hard tissues. Hard tissues. Remember I told us just now that it is the cartilages that mature or develop into bones. So we have the cartilages developing into what we refer to as the bones.
Does it mean that every bone in the body was first injured?
I can't hear you. Please speak up. Speak louder.
Does it mean that every bone part in the body was first a cartilage tissue?
Exactly. All the bones in the body were originally cartilages before they became fully formed and turned into bones. Do you understand that now? The bones in the body,
Yes.
they were originally cartilages, and that is why when a baby is born, they carry out the molding process. At the point when a baby is born, if it is possible to quickly notice that a baby is probably having rickets, this thing that we call bow leg, at that point it is possible to correct it because the bones are not yet fully formed. Do you understand that now? At that point the bones are not yet what? Fully formed. They are still what? Undergoing the process of formation. They are still semi-cartilages and semi-bones. Do you understand? They are undergoing the transition between the cartilages and what? And the bones. That is the process of ossification. So in that process, during that period, if they start giving that child, like if you remember, we said that the every skeleton we're talking about chitin, we said that it is rich in what? In mineral salts of phosphate and what? Carbonate of calcium. Can you remember? Are we together?
Yes,
Yeah. So the same phosphate and carbonate salts of calcium rather, if they start giving that baby as a supplement, it is going to what? Correct that abnormality, if I may put it that way. It is at that point that it is possible for that process to be corrected. So all bones were originally cartilages, and then ossification takes place where the cartilages become what? Fully formed and turned into bones. Is it clear now? Is it clear now?
yes, please, yes.
Alright. So I said, let's continue. I said the bones are what? They are hard tissues. In fact, in the body of an organism, the bones are the hardest what? The hardest tissues. Let me put it that way. They are the hardest tissues. I'm coming. Just give me a minute. The hardest tissues. That's what we refer to as what? Bones. Hardest tissues in the body of organisms. That's what we refer to as what? Bones. They are the hardest tissues that we find in the body of what? Of organism. And they are made up of calcium salts. Made up of calcium and phosphates, salts. They are made up of calcium and phosphate salts. Example, we have calcium phosphate. We have the calcium phosphate. So that particular supplement that we take, that they tell us that it is good for strong bones and teeth, they are referred to as what? Calcium what? Supplements. So that is basically what the bones are made of. So it gives, this particular bone gives what? Organisms its rigidity. It gives organism the rigidity and strength that it needs. The rigidity and strength that the body of an organism requires, that is what that is produced with what? With the bones. I believe we are making progress. So let's quickly see, are there differences between bones and cartilages? Do we have any differences between bones and cartilages? So that is going to give us this differences between cartilages and bones. Differences between cartilages and bones. So let's do something like this. And then here we have cartilage, and here we have bones. So number one, we say that what cartilages are made up of mainly living cells. These living cells, they are called chondroblasts. The living cells are called chondroblasts. But for the bones, they also have living cells. Living cells, and they are called osteocytes, which are surrounded by surrounded by non-living cells. Non-living cells called collagen. So what this is saying is, in the body of the cartilage, in the cartilages, we have them made of what? Of substances called the chondroblasts. The body of the organism, they are made up of what? Substances called chondroblasts. The body of the cartilages. And these chondroblasts are actually living cells. But in the bones also have living cells. They are called osteocytes. And the osteocytes are surrounded by non-living cells called the collagen. So number two, cartilages lack mineral salts. Cartilages lack mineral salts, but the bones consist majorly of mineral salts, like we have the CaPO4, that is calcium phosphate. So I believe we are together. Let me quickly put this right. So, like I was saying, the cartilages do not have mineral salts in them. They lack mineral salt. They do not have what, or they do not contain any mineral salts. But the bones consist of mineral salts like the calcium phosphate. We already said that earlier on. And then number 3, cartilages are soft. They are soft tissues. Soft tissues. But the bones are hard tissues. They are made of hard tissues. Then cartilages are flexible. Cartilages are flexible and tough, but bones are strong and rigid. Bones are strong and rigid. Please, you have to be specific here. They are strong and rigid in adults. Remember that I said it, that when the baby is born, the bones are not yet fully formed. They are going to be gradually strengthened from the cartilages. It is the cartilages that are being ossified to what we now have as the bones. So number 5 here is going to be what I said earlier on, that cartilages are replaced by bone, can be replaced by bones, but bones cannot be replaced by cartilages. Bones cannot be replaced by cartilages. And then number 6, okay? Number 6 here. Cartilages do not have blood vessels. Lack blood vessels. Lack blood vessels. But in the case of the bones possess blood vessels. So they possess blood vessels, food, and oxygen. So those are the major differences that we have between the cartilages and the bones. So what do you have as the function of the mammalian skeleton now? The function of the skeleton put together. Functions of the skeleton. Functions of the mammalian skeleton. 1. Support. Support. What do we mean by support? The skeleton of an organism gives support, or it provides support to internal organs for points of attachment. The internal organs of the body of an organism need to be what? Specifically and strategically positioned in the body of an organism. So the only way that these organs cannot what? Find themselves moving from place to place is because they are what? They are assigned positions in the body. And these positions are made possible by the rigid framework of the skeleton. So the body of the skeleton gives it what? It gives support to internal structures. It gives support to some internal structures or organs for points of attachment, thus preventing them from crushing on one another or moving from place to place, as well as giving form and shape to the body. Are we together? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Alright, so it is the function of the mammalian skeleton to give support to these internal structures. If there were no if there wasn't any skeleton, the organs of the body will be floating in the body without having a specific position. So it will be possible for them to have a collision when the organism is in disarray. Let's assume when the body is in a race, when the body is running, or when the kinetic energy of the body is heightened, is increased, you find out that the organs of the body will start to what? Hit one another. But because they are well positioned and are fixed, they are attached to specific positions or locations in the internal parts of the organism, in the skeletal system of that organism. They do not what? Crush on one another, they do not hit one another. And so that is the first what? Function of the skeletal system or of the mammalian skeleton. Number 2, protection. Number 2 is what? Protection. Number 2 is protection. Now, let us imagine that the body of an organism does not have the skin and the bones that make up the skeletal system. Let us imagine that we do not have any skin and bones to cover the internal organs of our body. For anybody who knows, if we were to throw a pin at a balloon, you will hear a sound, isn't it? That is the release of the air inside the balloon. Similar fate would have happened to any animal if it didn't have any skeletal system to protect the internal organs. If we were to throw a broomstick or a pin at the lung of an organism, because the lung is filled with air, you just hear a sound. That is the air in the lungs being released to the outside, and so the organism will eventually die. Also, the brain is another soft tissue that we have inside our body. The brain is very, very soft, very, very delicate. Any little contact to the brain can cause it to rupture. But because it is well protected, well enclosed in a particular type of bone called the cranial bone. The cranial bone helps to protect the cranial bone or the skull. The cranial bone or the skull protects the brain. So that is one way. The cranial bone is also a bone in the skeletal system. That is one way through which it protects what internal structures. So if not for the function of this skeletal system, internal structures would have been easily experiencing what we refer to as mechanical damage. So that is another function of the skeletal system. It is also responsible for locomotion. Locomotion, the ability of an organism to move from one position to the other, is as a result of the command that has been sent to the bones and the muscles through or by the brain through the spinal cord or the nervous system. The brain sends a command in form of a transmission, an electrical impulse or an ionic impulse. It sends it to the muscles and the bones for them to bring about what we refer to as movement. If not, even if we have the muscles receiving the impulse that has come from the brain to bring about movement, if there is no bone, if there are no bones in the body, this command will not be effected. It is because we have bones in the body that we now have it possible for locomotion to take place. So that is another function of the skeleton. Another one is production of red blood cells. Production of red blood cells. Production of RBC. Production of RBC. Now, the red blood cells are produced in the long thigh bone. The red blood cells are produced in the In the long thigh bone, in the bone marrow of the long thigh bone. The long thigh bone, called the femur, is where we have the production of the of the RBC. So that is what brings about the production of the red blood cells. So it is also one of the functions of the skeletal system. We have another function which is for respiration. Respiration, the continuous contraction and relaxation of the thoracic cavity, the thoracic region of our body, is what we refer to as is what brings about respiration. The continuous movement, the continuous contraction and relaxation of the thoracic cavity of every organism is what brings about respiration. When we inhale air, there is going to be what we refer to as relaxation of the thoracic cavity, and when we breathe out, it is going to contrast. The thoracic cavity contracts thereby expelling the air that is inside the lungs. So the continuous relaxation and contraction of the thoracic cavity brings about what expansion and relaxation of the lungs, which aids respiration. Also, formation of bone cells. Formation of what? Of bone cells. That's the last function that I will talk about. Formation of bone cells. Formation of bone cells. These bone cells, like the osteocalcin, they are found responsible for the production or to regulate blood glucose and fat deposition. So all of these that we have made mention of, they are the functions of the mammalian skeleton. Number one, we talked about support. Number two, we talked about protection. Number three, we talked about locomotion. Number four, we talked about production of red blood cell. Number five, we talked about respiration. Then number six, we talked about formation of blood, formation of bone cells. So that is that about that. And that is going to make us talk about uh, the types of skeleton that we have, or the classifications rather of skeleton. So classification of skeleton. So number one, we have the axial skeleton, and number two, we have the appendicular skeleton. Number one, we have the axial skeleton, and number two, we have the appendicular skeleton. The axial skeleton consists of the skull, it consists of the skull, the vertebral column, the ribs, we have the sternum. Okay, let me put it this way so it's easy to understand. Let me put it this way. Alright, the exoskeleton, I said it is made up of the skull, also called the cranial. You could see it in some textbooks as the cranial box or the cranium. Also, we have the vertebral column, vertebral column, or in some textbooks you see it as the backbone. We also have the ribs. We also have the sternum. We also have the rib. Okay, the ribs and the sternum make up the rib cage. The sternum is also called the breast. The breastbone. So it is the ribs and the sternum. These two here make up the rib. They make up the rib cage. So the rib, the exoskeleton. The exoskeleton is made up of the skull, the vertebral column or the backbone, the ribs, the sternum, which is also called the breastbone. Are we together? The breastbone or the chest bone. They make up the rib cage. The ribs and the sternum make up the rib cage. Now, in the body of a vertebrate, we have what we refer to as the exoskeleton. It has the skull, the ribs, the part that has ribs is what we refer to as the rib cage, and we know what the ribs are. They are found on the thoracic region of an organism. We also have the sternum. That is the bone that is found in the chest. That bone from the middle of your neck, in the front part of your body, down in the middle of the ribs, there is a flat bone there. That is what we refer to as the breastbone. Are we together? And then we have uh, the vertebral column, the bones down our spine. The bones on the backbone, they are referred to as the vertebral column. So all of these bones are made up, or they make up what we refer to as the exoskeleton. And then we have the second one, which is called the appendicular skeleton. The appendicular skeleton. So what does the appendicular skeleton, what is it made of? What is the appendicular skeleton made up of? We have the limbs and the limb girdles. The limbs, and then we have the what? The limb girdles. We have the limbs and the limb girdles. These limb girdles are divided into two. We have the pectoral girdle. We have the pectoral girdle. We also have the pelvic girdle. This one here make up the four limbs. While these ones here make up the hind limbs. So the appendicular skeleton has the limbs and the limb girdles, the pectoral girdle and the pelvic girdle. The limbs are talking about the arms and the legs. We have, for a human for example, we have two arms and we have two legs. So the point of attachment of these arms and the legs to the other parts of the body, which are referred to as the exoskeleton, is what we refer to as the girdles. So the shoulder is what we refer to as the shoulder, that joint in the shoulder is what we refer to as the pectoral girdle. Are we together? It makes up, or that's from that shoulder to our fingers, they make up the pectoral girdle, and then from our hip to our toes, they make up the pelvic girdle. Are we together? Are we together?
Yes,
I hope
sir.
we have not forgotten the question we have in mind. The question again says the two halves of the pelvic girdle and the pelvic girdle are joined together at the A. Pubic symphysis, B. Ilium, C. Pubis, D. Obturator foramen. So gradually we are getting to where we are going. So let us quickly look at them one after the other. What do we refer to as the skull? The skull. The skull is the small bone of the head. The skull is the small bone of the head. The skull is the small bone of the head, and it is divided into what? Into three. We have the cranium or the brain box, we have the facial skeleton, and then the jaw. We have the cranium, we have the facial skeleton, facial skeleton. We have the jaw, the cranium, the facial skeleton, and then the last one is the cranium. Those are the three that we have there. We have the cranium, the facial skeleton, and the jaw. They make up the what? They make up the skull. So its function is to protect the brain. Then we have the vertebral column, as well as the sternum, the rib cage. We leave all those for our next class. But the particular question that we are answering, it says the point of joint of the point where the joint, the two halves of the pelvic girdle, they are joined together at the answer to that question is called the pubic symphysis. Let me quickly explain that. We have two girdles. We have the pectoral girdle and the pelvic girdle. Are we together? We have the pectoral girdle and the pelvic girdle. The pectoral girdle has a flat bone. The pectoral girdle, that is the bone of the what? Of the arm, of the upper arm, the hand. It has a flat bone at the back, what we refer to as the shoulder blade or the scapula. And it has in front of it something called the clavicle or the collarbone. And then in the front where we have what the coracoid process projecting from the scapula. And then for the pelvic girdle consists of three bones. The pelvic girdle consists majorly of three bones that are fused together. The pelvic girdle, now let me be fast with it. The pelvic girdle has three bones. Number one, it has the anterior pubis, Number two, it has the posterior ischium. And number three, it has the obturator foramen. The obturator foramen. This is a hole between the pubis and the ischium. A hole between the what? The pubis and the ischium. So those are the bones that make up the what? The pectoral girdle. I mean the pelvic girdle rather. The pectoral girdle is the bone of the upper arm, while the pelvic girdle, they make up the what? The lower arm, which are the what? The lower limbs rather, which are the legs. So I said that the bones are, we have the obturator foramen, which is a hole between the pubis and the ischium. We have the anterior pubis and then the posterior ischium. So it is through the obturator foramen that nerves, blood vessels, and muscles pass. And then between the left and the right halves of the girdle is a joint called the pubic symphysis. We have something called the pubic Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. So sorry for the little break. So like I was saying, it is this question now, the two halves of the pelvic girdle, they are joined together at the pubic symphysis. So it is the two halves of the pelvic girdle. We have the left pelvic and the right pelvic. So these two halves, they are joined together at a point called the pubic symphysis. So that is the answer to the what? To this particular question. This pubis and the obturator foramen, they are, we have, this person is supposed to be ischium. This option B here is supposed to be ischium. Then we have the pubic symphysis and the obturator foramen. Those are the parts of the pelvis. Are we together? The parts of the what? Of the pelvic girdle. These are the three parts of the pelvic girdle. But the point where the two halves meet is what we refer to as the what? As the pubic symphysis. I believe that particular question is clear. Hello? Do you understand that particular question? You understand the answer that is given to that particular question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the hind limb, the head of the hind limb, like I was trying to write here, I said the pubic symphysis. Sorry. The pubic symphysis. That is the what? The joint of the two halves of the pelvic girdle. The pubic symphysis, the joint of the two halves of the pelvic girdle, is what we refer to as the pubic symphysis. Then the head of the limb bone of the femur fits into a hole called the acetabulum. The acetabulum is a part of the pelvic girdle. Acetabulum, a hole, a hole in which the head of the femur fits into. The acetabulum is a hollow in which the head of the femur fits into. So I was trying to explain something earlier on. So the ribs, while I was trying to explain the exoskeleton, I said it has the skull. While I was explaining the exoskeleton, I said it has the skull, the vertebral column, the ribs, the sternum, and then I said the skull has the cranial, the cranial box or the cranium. It has the facial skeleton and then the jaw, and then we have the vertebral column that has the bones of the backbone, all the vertebral bones that we have on our backbone that make up the vertebral column, then the ribs and the sternum. So if we quickly have to talk about the backbone now, the backbone, let me put that here. The backbone, we have majorly 5 bones on our backbone. We have number 1, all that I'll be talking about here is in the animals. The first one is called the cervical vertebrae, and it is divided into 2. We have the atlas, and we have the second one, which is called the axis. The atlas and the axis. In man, the atlas is 2 and the axis is 5 in man. And then the second bone is what? The thoracic. The thoracic vertebrae has a total of 12. It has a total of 12. And number 3, we have the lumbar. We have the lumbar vertebrae. The lumbar vertebrae has a total of 5. And then we have the fourth one, which is called the sacral. The sacral vertebrae, this also has a total of 5 in man. And the last one, which is called the caudal. The caudal vertebrae has a total of 4. The caudal vertebrae has a total of 4 bones. So if you were to add all of this together, you find out that it has a total of 33 bones. So those are the number of bones that we have. These ones here, let me quickly tell us their location. Their location in our body. The location of each of the bones. These ones here, they are found in the neck. The cervical bones, they are found in the neck. Then we have this one here that is found in the what? In the upper, or let me not say upper here. Let me just write here, chest region. And this one here, we have it in the upper abdomen. This one is in the lower abdomen. This is in the lower abdomen, and this one here is the tailbone. This one here is the what? The tailbone. So we have the cervical vertebrae, which makes up the neck, or is found in the neck region of our backbone. It has two sets of bones, the atlas and the axis. The atlas is 2 in number, and then the axis is 5 in number. Then we have the thoracic vertebrae, which has 12 bones. It is this thoracic vertebrae that has all the ribs attached to it. All the thoracic vertebrae, we have them from position 7. If you count, and in position 8. If you count, this cervical vertebrae is starting from position 1 to what? To 7. And then we have this one from position 8. From 8 we now count 12 places, because we have this here for the total of what? Of the thoracic vertebrae that we have, to be 12. So we count 12 places from 8. That is going to be 8, 9, 10, then to 19. Are we together? So 8 to 19 is the thoracic vertebral region. Then the lumbar 5 bones, that is from 20 to 24. And then sacral, which is another 5, is from 25 to 29. And then we have the last set, which is called that, which is from 30 to 33. So you understand how we have all the sets of bones now. The first one, the cervical vertebrae, has 2 sets of bones, the atlas and the axis. Now, the first atlas is the one that carries our skull. It carries the bone, the head of the bone of the head. It is the first atlas that carries the bone of the head. It is on this very atlas that the head sits on. So it is the function of the atlas now that makes it possible for us to have the upward and the downward movements of the head. That is why we have the reason to what? It is the function of this particular bone called the cervical bone, the one that is found, the atlas. The atlas makes it possible for us to what? To move our head in that manner. And then the second one, which is the axis, makes it possible for us to move our head from left to right. Are we together? Are we together? Hello? Okay. So what we're saying, then we have the thoracic vertebrae, which starts from position 8 on the backbone of man. Please, this number that I've given us here is for the vertebral column of man. So it starts from the position 8 to position 19. So it starts for 12 places. So the 12 bones there, they make up the 12 ribs. Now the first 10 bones, or the first 10 ribs, let me just jump down here. Let me see what I want to say here. The ribs, okay, cervical. Sorry, what we want to talk about now is the thoracic. The thoracic vertebrae, I said there are 12 in number. Then the first 10, The first 10, they are called the true ribs. The first 10 are called the true ribs, while the last 2, they are called false ribs or floating ribs. They are called false ribs or floating ribs. The first 10, they are called the true ribs, while the last 2, they are called what? The false ribs or the floating ribs. The first 10 actually have what? An articulation with the chest bone that we refer to as the sternum. The bone in the chest is referred to as the what? As the sternum. So it has what we refer to as what? The 10 first ribs called the what? The true ribs. While the last 2, they are not what? Attached to the sternum. That is why when we touch the side of our abdomen, the lower part, the lower side of our abdomen, you find out that there are 2 bones there on either side that are not attached like other ribs to the what? To the sternum. Those 2 bones on either side of our lower abdomen, they are referred to as the false ribs. They are referred to as the what? The false ribs. Are we together? And then we have the sacral, sorry, the lumbar bone. They are the ones that are found in the upper abdomen. They are 5 in number, and they are followed by another set of 5 bones called the sacral bones. They make up the lower abdomen. And lastly, we have the what? The caudal bone, which is what? The tail bones. So that is that about the vertebral column, the ribs. And then we have talked about the pelvic girdle and the pectoral girdle. Again, let me just quickly talk about the function of the ribs. The function of the ribs is to protect the heart and the lungs, and then upward and downward movements of the ribs, which help in breathing. Functions of the ribs. Functions of the ribs. Number 1 is what? To protect the heart and lungs. That's the first function of the ribs. Protect what? The heart and lungs. And number two, we have it as what? The upward and downward movements of the rib cage. Helps in breathing by increasing and decreasing by increasing and decreasing by increasing and decreasing the chest cavity. So those are the functions of the ribs. One is to protect the heart and the lungs, and two, the upward and the downward movement of the ribs. Their function is to what? Help in breathing what process. They help in breathing process. Help to what? Make it possible for our lungs to be able to take in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. So as far as we have come, I want to believe that you now understand what that question was actually talking about. The question again says that the two halves, the two halves of the pelvic girdle, they are joined together at, the answer to that question is what? The pubic symphysis. So we will stop our class here today. Do we have any question? Is there any question that needs to be answered? Anybody? Any question? Any question for me?
No.
No? Does anybody have any question concerning this particular topic?